Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Volume 4 of Step Through the Ropes. In early 1990, the late Mr. Fuji sold the contracts of his tag team, the Powers of Pain, the Warlord and the Barbarian, to the Doctor of Style, Slick, and the late Bobby Heenan, respectively. Now, the question is, who got the better end of the deal of the split? Well, let's go back in time. A short time after they were split, it was announced that the Barbarian would wrestle Tito Santana at WrestleMania 6. The Barbarian defeated Tito Santana in that matchup, and the Warlord was not on the show. SummerSlam 1990, the Warlord got lucky. Originally, Tito Santana was going to wrestle the model Rick Martel, but it was announced on TV that Martel could not appear because he was going to be attending a fashion show in Paris. I'm guessing that was just an angle to cover up that Martel was injured or just could not be available that night. And then it was announced Santana would face the Warlord. And the Warlord defeated Tito Santana in a singles match. And the Barbarian was not on the show. Then Survivor Series 1990. The Barbarian joined forces with Haku, Dino Bravo, and Earthquake, rest the two aforementioned souls, as the Natural Disasters, as they were defeated by the Hulkamaniacs, Hulk Hogan, Tugboat, Jim Duggan, and the late Big Boss Man. That very same night, the Warlord, as 1/4 of the Visionaries with Rick Martel and Power and Glory, Paul Roman, and Hercules, defeated the Vipers, Jake Roberts, Jimmy Snuka, and the Rockers, and by virtue of the victory, they were the first time ever, a whole team survived intact in a Survivor Series elimination match. And that was the first time in Survivor Series history a whole team survived and the Warlord, Martel, and Power and Glory made history. Those four men made history again later that same night as they were entered in the first and only grand finale match of Survival, where they joined forces with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, against Tito Santana, Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior. And the Warlord made history for the third time in the same night, as he was actually eliminated first from this match as he got pinned by Tito Santana, and the rest of his team had gone down at the hands of Hogan and Warrior, who survived the grand finale match of Survival. The 1991 Royal Rumble, the Barbarian lost a singles match to the Big Boss Man. The Warlord was in the Royal Rumble match, entered at number 29 only to be eliminated by Hulk Hogan. At WrestleMania 7, the Barbarian opened up the show, teaming with Haku, losing to the Rockers, while the Warlord lost a singles match to the late Davey Boy Smith. SummerSlam 91, Warlord opened up the show with a six-man tag, joining forces with Power and Glory in a losing effort to the aforementioned Davey Boy Smith, Ricky Steamboat, and the late Kerry Von Erich, while the Barbarian was not on the show. Survivor Series 1991, Warlord opened up the show, teaming with Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase, and the Mountie, defeating Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, Virgil, and Davey Boy Smith in an elimination matchup. And I know originally the Barbarian was, even before the match was announced on television, the Barbarian was initially going to be on this show on Colonel Mustafa, who we know as the Iron Sheik, on that team. Barbarian, unfortunately, I don't know why he was unable to make it, but by the time the match was announced on television, he had been replaced by Skinner, as they joined forces with the Berserker and the Mighty Hercules, who replaced another one who has since died, Big Bully Busick, who Busick obviously was gone from the company by the time that pay-per-view took place. Then, the first and only Tuesday night in Texas pay-per-view, the Warlord was defeated by the late Davey Boy Smith. Barbarian was not on the show. Then, the 1992 Royal Rumble, the Warlord entered at number 30, only to be eliminated by Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice. The Barbarian entered at number 8 to be eliminated by the Mighty Hercules. And both Warlord and the Barbarian left the WWF months later. Later that year, Barbarian ended up in WCW He and the late Dick Slater wound up the last WCW United States Tag Team champions before that championship got discontinued. And Barbarian was aligned with Cactus Jack, Tony Atlas. Barbarian got to wrestle Ron Simmons for the world title at Halloween Havoc. And at some point in 1993, the Barbarian was released from the company. But in 1994, the Barbarian returned to the WWF wrestling under his real first name, Sione, as he became a new head shrinker teaming with Fatu. And then at some point in 95, Sione the Barbarian was gone from the company. And then later, by the end of 95, Barbarian and Warlord reunited under masks in WCW as the Super Assassins, and they were managed by Colonel Robert Parker. And I think in early 96, the Warlord was gone from the company, and the Barbarian went back to being the Barbarian. He ended up a part of the Dungeon of Doom. He and Haku were the Faces of Fear for, I think, 2 years. I think they teamed up, and I forgot. I don't know if it was 99 or 2000, the Barbarian was gone from the company. And but eventually the Powers of Pain, since that time, have been doing conventions, and they've been appearing on a lot of independent shows as a tag team. But in my opinion, as a tag team, the Powers of Pain never did get their due. They were paired together when they both worked for Jim Crockett Promotions, and they were managed by Paul Jones, who passed away last year, and they were put into a feud with the Road Warriors, where they had a bench press contest, which ended up a big angle because Animal had to get surgery on his eye that got messed up in a match they previously had way before the bench press competition, which aired on TV. And the Powers and the late Ivan Koloff wound up six-man tag team champions, defeating the Warriors and the late Dusty Rhodes. And as a result, they were supposed to do a scaffold match with the Road Warriors, but the Powers of Pain, they did not want to lose a match, fearing they would get injured, and they decided to leave Jim Crockett Promotions. They went to the WWF, and they wound up working with the Bolsheviks, which was Boris Zukov and Nikolai Volkov, who passed away last year. And then at the Survivor Series 1988, the Powers joined forces with the Rockers, Hart Foundation, Young Stallions, and the British Bulldogs to face Demolition, the Fabulous Rougeau Brothers, the Brain Busters, the Conquistadors, and the Bolsheviks. And in this match is where Mr. Fuji had turned on Demolition. Powers of Pain came to his rescue, and Fuji left with the Powers of Pain. And at that point on, that feud culminated at WrestleMania 5 when Demolition defeated the Powers and Fuji in a 3-on-2 handicap match. And the Powers of Pain spent the rest of '89 working with the Hart Foundation. They were doing shows with the Bushwhackers, where the Powers of Pain were constantly disqualified for Fuji's interference. And they started up a little feud with the Rockers they were doing on house shows before their split. So, the way I look at it, from the time the Demolition feud ended, the Powers of Pain went down and went nowhere. Well, the Powers of Pain themselves went nowhere, like WrestleMania 5 on, until they're split in early 1990. So, folks, let me know what you guys think. Who got the better end of the deal? You think the Powers of Pain should have gotten their due in the wrestling business? Please leave your comments and your likes, your dislikes, and anything else you want to leave. And by the way, folks, I'll let you know right now, not sure when I'll put it together, but when I do Volume 5, be on the lookout, because Step Through the Ropes Volume 5 will be The Radicals Jump.